Hey guys, it's Libby. Today we are doing my, oh god, what month is it? October wrap-up and November TBR. Obligatory statement about how quickly the months are passing and how I am old and we will all die soon. So this month I read 4 novels and 3 graphic novels, thanks in no small part to Dewey's 24-hour readathon, and quite a few of these books are going to be getting their own reviews. I don't think any of them are going to be up yet, but they will be up shortly, so forgive the brief overviews that I will give them in this video. The first book I read was God Help the Child by Toni Morrison. This one is getting its own review, but suffice it to say, I liked it. Next is House on the Strand by Daphne du Maurier. I started this back in like July or something. It took me a long time to get through the first half, but then as the story progressed, it did speed up. This is about a man named Richard Young, who is a friend of a scientist named Magnus Lane. Good name. This is set in the 1960s, and my cat is bumping into the tripod, so maybe minor earthquakes. And Magnus appears to have invented a potion that when you drink, it like sends you back in time to the 14th century. This book is taking place in the 1960s. And while you're there, all of your perception is of the 14th century, but like your body is still in the 20th century, so you can still like run into walls and like people can see you wandering aimlessly about. And this story is basically an allegory about drug addiction. Richard basically signs up to be Magnus's guinea pig, so he takes this drug and it has increasing like physical effects, and he makes like really bad life decisions. He lies to his wife and his stepsons, and he endangers his health in order to keep going back because he's obsessed with the people that he sees there. And that part I found really interesting. However, a lot of the book was also about these 14th century people, which I found really confusing to keep track of because you just get like a whole bunch of characters thrown at you from like page 2. All of them have like really long last names, and most of those last names start with the letter C. There's 3 people named Joanna and 2 people named Isolde. It's confusing. There's also like a brother and sister have married a brother and sister, and then there's a set of cousins, and like everyone's having affairs with everyone else. If you read this book, there is a family tree, which I kept looking at and kept being confused. So, if you are reading this book, just the only people you have to keep track of are Joanna, the wife of Sir Henry, her brother Otto Bodrigan, and then Isolde, which Isolde? Isolde Ferrars, the wife of Sir Oliver. Everybody else, just let them wash over you. This has all of the things you would expect from Daphne du Maurier: troubled marriage, beautiful Cornish scenery, and very abrupt ending. All of these are things that I like. So I gave this a 3.5 stars. I might reread it, skimming over the early historical parts. Then I read The Arrival by Sean Tan, which I do not have my own copy of because I read this while I was at work. I am a substitute teacher, and one of the teachers that I was subbing for had this book, and it had been on my TBR. I don't own it, and they had it there, and I was like, it only takes half an hour, maybe 20 minutes to read, so I just read it while the kids were at lunch. And I am glad that I did not spend my own money on a copy. This is a wordless graphic novel. It's only pictures. And it's a sort of generified story of immigration in what kind of feels like the early 20th century. There's a man who's leaving kind of Russia, maybe, and in theory, he'd be going to America, but the new country actually reminded me of Turkey a bit more. So he goes, but he has to leave his wife and daughter behind, and then when he arrives, he meets other people who are also immigrants, and they tell him the stories, or show him the stories of how they escaped, and then at the end, his wife and daughter join him, and I think this book was just too young for me. there is not actually a plot. You would expect there to be some sort of conflict. So at first I thought, oh, there's going to be some conflict in his home country, and we'll get to see that, but no, it's like, okay, there's gonna be some conflict on his trip over on the boat, but there isn't. It's like, oh, okay, so the conflict's gonna happen in the New World. But it didn't. He just goes around and talks to other people. So if you, like, have never had exposure, if you, like, are a third grader and have never had exposure to early 20th century immigration stories, this could be interesting, but, like, I already know that. I have, in fact, read The Golem and the Jinni. I'm gonna stick with that one, thank you. I gave this a 2.5 stars. And that is the last book that I read before Dewey's 24-hour readathon kicked off, so if you watched that vlog, none of these will be a surprise to you. The first book I read for that was Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. My mom had also read this a couple of weeks before, and since there's quite a lot to say about this book, we did a joint review, which I'll be posting later. It's about refugees during World War II fleeing Eastern Europe. It was really, really good and really, really sad. And after that sort of intenseness, I picked up something a bit lighter. The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil by Stephen Collins. This is a graphic novel. It is black and white. I wouldn't say that the art is particularly gorgeous, but it is very well suited to this story. It's about a guy named Dave who lives in a place called Here, where everything is very neat and very orderly, and then one day this one little hair that he has growing out of his upper lip develops into this massive giant beard and disrupts all of the nice pleasantness of Here. And although this seems like it would be a kind of predictable story, I was surprised by the ending, and it was very satisfying, so I gave this a 4 stars. Next, I reread Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This is a collection of 5 graphic short stories. A lot of people on BookTube know about this. It's very pretty. The main problems that I have with this, well, one, historical costuming nitpick. A lot of these are set in time periods that are not our own. There's one set in like 1810, and there's one in like the 1760s, and there's one in the 1920s. And sometimes the costumes are not quite right. This one is very nice. This 1920s drapey frock on the new glamorous sister-in-law. And then other nitpicky example, I'm sorry if you don't care, is Jana, the woman in the red. So these ladies are dressed for like 1806 to 1818. And the one with the glasses has good Regency hair, but Jana's hair is like 1840s, so it does not go with the dress at all. Okay, I'll shut up. And also, these are horror stories, and I just have a problem with horror stories not having a sufficient conclusion. So this is a 3.5 for me. And then the last book that I read this month was Midwinter Blood. Also, a lot to say about this. It's 7 interconnected stories following basically the same characters going back in time from like the future in 2073 to like the deep pagan past of Sweden. There's a lot of human sacrifice. I've already filmed a review for this, and it will be up shortly. So that's all for October. In November, the books I'm currently reading are what's it called? Wintersmith by Terry Pratchett. I'm a little bit more than halfway through this. I'm not sure if I like it yet. It does have Granny Weatherwax being awesome. Gotta love Esmeralda. I'm just finding some key points of it somewhat improbable. And I'm still listening to the audiobook of The Raven Boys. The reason that it's taking me so long to get through this is that I'm listening to it on Scribd, and normally I listen to audiobooks when I'm driving around and I listen to them on my phone, but like it has stopped working on my phone, so I'm only listening to it on my computer. I should probably just uninstall and then reinstall the Scribd app, but that smacks of effort. And then for the rest of my November TBR, the first half of it at least will be dominated by YALLFest authors, because I am going to YALLFest, which is like 2 weeks from now or something. So there's 5 authors that I want to see at YALLFest. The first one is Maggie Stiefvater, so need to make some progress on the Raven Boys. The next 2 are Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, who wrote Illumine and have just come out with the sequel Gemina. I have read Illumine. It's actually currently in my car right now, and I'm way too lazy to go out and get it. And then I need to get Gemina while I'm down there. I'm not sure if I'm immediately going to read Gemina though, because my main approach for ongoing series is to read the first one and to see if I like it or not, and then wait until all the rest have come out, and then reread the first one and binge through the rest of the series. So I may not be reading Gemina this year, unless it probably will be up for a BookTube SFF award. The next one is Ruta Sepetys. I have read Salt to the Sea, so check mark for her. She has written 2 other books. They don't grab me as much as Salt to the Sea, but I'm going to hear her talk on panels, so we'll see if that gets me interested in them. And then the last one is Leigh Bardugo. Leigh Bardugo was there last year, and I did see her and get her books signed. I have made no progress on her books since then, in basically an entire year. One day, I just stopped in the middle of chapter 3 of Siege and Storm, and I have not picked it up since then. I should do that. So I guess the books that I really do want to get read before I go to YALLFest are Siege and Storm, Ruin and Rising, Six of Crows duology I don't think is going to happen, and then definitely finish the first book of the Raven Boys series, which is also called The Raven Boys. I hate that. And then start the audiobooks for the other ones. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.